Welcome. What you are about to watch is not science fiction, and it is not folklore. It is a serious investigation into one of history's most compelling unresolved questions: the mystery of the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination, or genuine harbinger. Across the world, in universities, research institutes, and field excavations, serious scholars are wrestling with evidence that does not fit the accepted story. Evidence that has been documented, measured, and peer-reviewed, and that still has no satisfying conventional explanation. We are going to look at that evidence carefully, without prejudice in either direction, not dismissing what is extraordinary, but not accepting it without scrutiny either. The truth, as always, is in the details. Between November 1966 and December 1967, over 100 residents of Point Pleasant, West Virginia, reported seeing the same creature. It stood 2 meters tall. It had enormous red eyes. It had wings that let it fly at speeds witnesses estimated at 160 kilometers per hour. Witnesses described it consistently without apparent coordination. Separate sightings across 13 months produced near-identical physical descriptions from people who had no prior contact with each other. Then, on December 15, 1967, the Silver Bridge connecting Point Pleasant to Gallipolis, Ohio, collapsed during rush-hour traffic. 46 people died. The Mothman sighting stopped immediately and completely. John Keel, who had spent months in Point Pleasant investigating the creature, arrived at a conclusion that mainstream science rejected but could not cleanly refute. Something had been watching Point Pleasant before the disaster. And no one, not then, not now, has satisfactorily explained what over 100 witnesses saw in the skies above the Ohio River Valley. This is where our investigation begins. Stay with us, because the further we go into the evidence, the more extraordinary it becomes. The story you think you know is only the surface. Beneath it lies something far more remarkable. Let us begin. Before we examine the specific evidence, we need to step back and understand the context. This case does not exist in isolation. It sits within the landscape of modern documented mysteries, and to properly evaluate what we are looking at, we need to understand the broader picture that surrounds it. Human perception is fallible. This is not an insult, it is neuroscience. The brain does not passively record reality, it actively constructs it, filling gaps with expectation, inferring causes from insufficient data, and storing memories that are reshaped by subsequent experience. Eyewitness testimony is the weakest form of courtroom evidence, precisely because what people see and what actually happened frequently diverge. Sound can cause visual hallucinations. Infrasound at specific frequencies can produce feelings of dread, the sensation of a presence, and even visual disturbances. Sleep deprivation, stress, and hypoxia can generate vivid experiences indistinguishable from waking reality. All of this is relevant when evaluating modern mysteries. Many apparently anomalous experiences have prosaic explanations rooted in human neurology, temporal lobe activity, hypnagogic hallucinations, shared social expectation shaping perception. A willingness to consider these explanations is not dismissiveness, it is intellectual hygiene. The brain is capable of generating extraordinarily convincing experiences that have no external cause, and yet, the perceptual explanation has its limits. It cannot account for physical evidence, radiation burns, landing traces, electromagnetic interference on electronic equipment, or anomalous readings on calibrated instruments. When multiple independent witnesses, separated by distance, report identical details, mass hallucination strains credulity. When physical measurements corroborate subjective experience, the neurological explanation is insufficient. These are the cases that demand another look. This context matters because it tells us something important. What we are about to investigate is not an isolated curiosity. It is part of a pattern that researchers in multiple fields have been independently documenting for decades. And patterns, in science, demand explanation. With that foundation in place, let us now turn to the specific case at hand. Now we reach the heart of the matter. The core evidence surrounding the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination or genuine harbinger, is more extensive, more verified, and more troubling for conventional explanations than most people realize. Let us walk through it systematically, fact by fact, and allow the evidence to speak for itself. We are not going to speculate here. Every point that follows is documented in peer-reviewed publications, official archaeological records, or government archives that are publicly accessible. The question is not whether these facts are real. The question is what they mean. Consider this first extraordinary detail. The first documented Mothman sighting occurred on November 12, 1966, when two young couples, Roger and Linda Scarberry and Steve and Mary Mallette, reported encountering a large, winged, gray humanoid figure with glowing red eyes near an abandoned World War Roman II munitions facility known as the TNT area outside Point Pleasant. They fled in their car, claiming the creature pursued them at highway speeds without flapping its wings. This single data point, if taken in isolation, might be set aside. Anomalies happen, instruments malfunction, researchers make mistakes. But as we continue, you will see that this is not an isolated anomaly. It is part of a consistent and documented pattern. But that is only the beginning. Researchers also discovered over 100 witnesses reported Mothman encounters between November 1966 and December 1967. Descriptions were strikingly consistent across separate, uncoordinated accounts. A humanoid figure approximately 2 meters tall, with a wingspan of 3 to 4 meters, large reflective red eyes positioned on the body rather than the head, and the ability to achieve flight without the flapping motion associated with birds. Now, a skeptic might propose an alternative explanation for this, and that is entirely reasonable. We should always test alternative explanations before accepting extraordinary ones. The problem is that the alternative explanations, when examined carefully, create more problems than they solve. The mystery deepens when we examine the Silver Bridge, a chain-link I-bar suspension bridge built in 1928, collapsed on December 15, 1967, during rush-hour traffic. 46 of the approximately 100 vehicles on the bridge at the time of collapse fell into the Ohio River. The National Transportation Safety Board investigation determined the cause was a single corroded I-bar link, a structural failure completely independent of any reported paranormal activity. This is where the conventional account begins to strain. Each individual fact might be dismissed or minimized in isolation. But the cumulative weight of the evidence is another matter entirely. Perhaps most remarkable of all, investigative journalist and author John Keel documented the Mothman sightings, UFO reports, men in black encounters, and anomalous telephone interference he observed during extended stays in Point Pleasant throughout 1967. His 1975 book, The Mothman Prophecies, argued that the Mothman was not a biological creature, but an ultra-terrestrial or interdimensional entity that appeared as a harbinger of imminent large-scale death. Researchers who have examined this evidence have described it as genuinely difficult to explain within the accepted framework. These are not fringe commentators. They are credentialed academics publishing in mainstream journals, raising questions that the field has not yet satisfactorily answered. Then there is the matter of the sandhill crane is the most commonly cited natural explanation for Mothman sightings. A large migratory bird with a wingspan of approximately 2 meters and a standing height of around 1.2 meters, sandhill cranes migrate through West Virginia and have red foreheads that can appear as red eyes under certain lighting conditions. Barn owls possess a tapetum lucidum that causes their eyes to reflect available light dramatically, appearing to glow when caught in headlights. What makes this particularly significant is its independence from the previous points. This is not a case of one theory requiring another. These are separate lines of evidence converging on the same uncomfortable conclusion. Adding to the enigma is this finding. A Chicago Mothman wave, beginning in 2017, generated 55 reported sightings in the greater Chicago metropolitan area within approximately 1 year, documented by researcher Lon Strickler and investigated by MUFON. Unlike the Point Pleasant events, the Chicago wave was not followed by a specific disaster, but was associated by some researchers with a period of elevated violence in the city. No physical evidence of the creature was produced from either wave of sightings. Taken together, these facts form a pattern that cannot be explained by coincidence, misidentification, or methodological error. Each piece of evidence has been examined by skeptics. Each has been subjected to alternative explanations, and in each case, the alternative explanation falls short of accounting for everything that has been documented. We are left with a body of evidence that demands explanation and an accepted narrative that does not provide one. This is where serious inquiry begins. Now that we have established the evidence, we need to examine the theories that researchers have proposed to explain the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination, or genuine harbinger. This is where the debate becomes most intense, because the theories reflect not just different interpretations of the same evidence, but fundamentally different assumptions about what is possible and what the past looked like. Understanding these theories is not just an academic exercise. Each one has been championed by serious researchers with genuine credentials, and each one captures something that the others miss. The truth, if it is ever established, will likely draw on elements of several. The first major explanation proposed by researchers holds that John Keel's ultraterrestrial hypothesis, that the Mothman is an entity from a parallel dimension or non-physical realm that manifests physically before mass casualties as a warning, or as a response to the emotional intensity surrounding impending disaster, remains the most famous interpretation and the framework of the 2002 Richard Gere film. It has no scientific support and is unfalsifiable, but has shaped all subsequent popular discussion of the phenomenon. This interpretation has significant academic support and is backed by substantial evidence, but it is not without problems. Critics point out that it requires assumptions that go beyond what the evidence strictly supports, and that key predictions of this theory have not been confirmed by subsequent research. It remains contested, and the contest is productive. A rival school of thought argues that misidentification of large birds, primarily sandhill cranes or great blue herons, combined with psychological priming from initial press coverage, which shaped subsequent witnesses' expectations and perceptual interpretation of ambiguous aerial stimuli. This is the standard skeptical explanation, supported by the biology of large migratory birds passing through the Ohio River Valley, but it struggles to account for the witness descriptions of humanoid body shape and red eyes positioned on the torso. This theory is controversial, and deliberately so. Its proponents argue that the evidence demands an explanation outside the conventional framework. Critics counter that extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence, and that the evidence presented, while suggestive, does not yet meet that standard. The debate continues in peer-reviewed literature. Perhaps the most unconventional theory suggests that genuine unknown cryptid inhabiting the Ohio River Valley area, perhaps a large undescribed bird or primate species, encountered repeatedly during a period of heightened community attention following the initial sightings. This hypothesis is considered scientifically implausible given the absence of any physical evidence, feathers, tracks, or biological material, despite over 100 alleged encounters across 13 months in a densely observed area. What is striking about this debate is not merely that experts disagree. That is normal and healthy in science. What is striking is the quality of the disagreement. Serious researchers, working from the same body of evidence, reaching genuinely different conclusions. That level of fundamental disagreement, when it persists over decades, is a signal that something important has not yet been understood. The question is not which of these theories is right. The question is whether any of them is right, or whether the truth is something that none of the current frameworks has yet been able to capture. The case surrounding the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination, or genuine harbinger does not rest on speculation alone. What distinguishes this investigation from pure mythology is the existence of documented, physical, verifiable evidence, material that has been examined by credentialed researchers and whose authenticity is not seriously disputed. What is disputed is its interpretation. Let us review the most significant documented evidence as objectively as possible. We are not going to cherry-pick the data that supports a preferred conclusion. We are going to lay out what exists and let you draw your own assessment. Physical evidence supporting this account includes Roger Scarberry's account of the initial November 1966 sighting remained consistent across multiple interviews conducted over 4 decades, suggesting the witnesses genuinely experienced something they interpreted as anomalous, rather than fabricating a story that evolved over time. Witness consistency is not proof of the creature's existence, but does argue against deliberate hoax by the initial reporters. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Investigators have documented. Keel documented UFO sightings, anomalous phone calls, and men in black encounters alongside the Mothman reports, suggesting that whatever was occurring in Point Pleasant during 1966-1967 was broader than a single misidentified bird. Whether that broader phenomenon was paranormal, psychological, or the product of a community in a heightened state of collective anxiety, primed to interpret ambiguous stimuli as threatening. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. On-site analysis revealed the Silver Bridge collapse was fully and convincingly explained by civil engineering investigation as a material failure, a corroded eye-bar, independent of any reported paranormal activity. The causal connection between Mothman sightings and the bridge collapse is associative and retrospective, identified after the disaster rather than predicted before it, making it consistent with the human tendency to find meaningful patterns in coincidental temporal proximity. This evidence has been subjected to independent verification. Skeptics have examined it. Alternative explanations have been proposed and tested. The data remains. The question of what it means remains open. Each individual piece of evidence might, in principle, be explained away. A single anomalous artifact might be misidentified. A single anomalous date might reflect contamination. A single anomalous eyewitness account might reflect misperception. The question is whether all of the evidence can be explained away, and whether the explanations required are more or less plausible than the evidence itself. When multiple independent lines of inquiry converge on the same conclusion, that convergence is the most powerful signal in empirical science. And that is exactly what we are seeing here. We have examined the history, the evidence, and the theories surrounding the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination, or genuine harbinger. Now we need to ask the question that is sometimes overlooked in discussions of ancient mysteries. Why does this matter? What does it mean for us today? It would be easy to file this away as an interesting historical curiosity, a puzzle from a distant past with no bearing on our present lives. That would be a fundamental mistake. The questions raised by this case touch on issues that are directly relevant to who we are, where we came from, and what the human story actually looks like before the period covered by conventional history. The Silver Bridge collapse remains fully explained by structural engineering failure. No physical evidence of the Mothman creature, biological material, clear photographs, or tracks has ever been produced from Point Pleasant or the Chicago Wave. The Mothman Museum opened in Point Pleasant in 2005, and the annual Mothman Festival draws approximately 50,000 visitors, making the creature a significant economic and cultural asset for the region regardless of its ontological status. The 2002 film The Mothman Prophecies, starring Richard Gere, revived popular interest, and introduced the story to a new generation. Whether the consistent witness descriptions from over 100 people across 13 months reflect a genuine unknown phenomenon or the power of collective perception to generate shared experiences remains a question that the available evidence cannot definitively resolve. Furthermore, the tools available to investigate these questions are advancing rapidly. Satellite imaging, ground-penetrating radar, ancient DNA analysis, isotopic tracing, and deep-sea sonar are all providing capabilities that previous generations of researchers could only dream of. Cases that were genuinely unresolvable 10 years ago are now open to new analysis, and the findings, consistently, are expanding rather than contracting the mystery. The investigation continues. New discoveries are being made. New analyses are being published. New voices are entering the conversation from disciplines that were not previously part of the discussion. The answers, when they come, and they will come, will not merely solve a historical puzzle. They will force a fundamental revision of assumptions that underpin our entire understanding of human history and human potential. We have now walked through the complete case of the Mothman of Point Pleasant, mass hallucination, or genuine harbinger. From the historical record, through the physical evidence, across the competing theories, and into the modern significance of what remains unresolved. What the story of Mothman ultimately reveals is not just a historical puzzle. It is a mirror. It reflects our assumptions back at us, our assumptions about what ancient people were capable of, about how knowledge is gained and lost across the centuries, and about the relationship between what we know and what we merely think we know. The evidence presented in this documentary is real. The questions it raises are genuine. The debate among researchers is ongoing, and that is healthy. Science is not a set of conclusions. It is a process. And the process requires that we remain open to evidence that challenges what we thought we knew, however uncomfortable that challenge might be. If you came to this documentary as a skeptic, we hope the evidence gave you something to think about. If you came as a true believer, we hope the critical examination gave you a more nuanced picture. The truth, as always, lies in the evidence, not in what we want to be true. Thank you for watching. If this investigation sparked your curiosity, please subscribe to the channel. We publish new documentaries every week, covering the full range of historical mysteries that the mainstream has not yet adequately explained. Leave a comment below telling us which case you want us to investigate next. The conversation continues. The investigation never ends.